Hey folks, good afternoon. It's Ben Capozzi with Broad Shoulders Farm, and it's almost 4 o'clock on Friday, February 22nd, maybe? 22nd, I think. I've been out working in the garden most of the day, and just about wrapping up here. It's time for me to get the tiller that I rented back into the element, so I can take it back to the rental place. I've had it for 4 days, 5 days. I've tried to get as much use out of it as I can despite the weather. But I'm fairly satisfied, 80% satisfied with what I've been able to get done. But let me flip the camera around. And what I thought you may find interesting, I'm talking an awful lot about the chickens and the ducks and the geese. But this is the year that I'm getting crops in the ground as well. Fun fact, originally the chickens and the ducks and the geese were hired just to help clear land so that I could then grow crops. And that was 2 years ago. And instead of growing crops, I just wound up getting obsessed with eggs and different breeds of poultry and all that. So this is a year where I'm moving my farm forward, another step in terms of the overall vision for it. So let me flip the camera around and I will give you a little orientation to everything that's going on here. So these juveniles, Morans and Svarthonas, and there's a cream leg bar or two in there, are roaming around right now in this area. That's the new Bantam house that we just moved them into 2 nights ago. So Wednesday night we got them moved in there. So they're all set up in their new house. They used to be in that dog kennel. And it was much more wrapped than it is right now, but we've started disassembling it, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But so the Bantams right now have a space that's I think 150% larger than it was. Their house is now 8 by 16. It used to be 10 by 10. And now, well, the next thing that's going to happen for them is this whole area here. If you can imagine a line down this way, and then over here, and then up here on the other side of the brooder, it's all going to get fenced in, and I've got some netting that I'm going to put up to keep hawks out. But they're going to have just a big run. They're the only birds that don't get to pasture. I used to have bantams all integrated with the flocks, and I can talk about that in another story because I have a tendency to get off track, and this is about the garden. So this part of the garden is going to be for that. When I say this part of the garden, I mean what my wife and I fenced in with 6-foot welded wire fencing last summer, or last spring, and this is the garden site. So from there to there on the southernmost side is all waterfowl paddock. So that is where the ducks and the geese live on days when they can't go out due to weather, or I can't let them out because I won't be here to hang out with them, or just for whatever reason. They don't actually spend a whole lot of time strictly in here. Most every day I open the coop, make sure they got fresh feed and water, and then I open that gate and out they go. You can see them hopefully in the lawn way out there. They just roam around all of creation, very happy. So nothing is going to change here. In fact, with the paddock, except for we'll take out this dog kennel, and I've got a big shade cloth that I'm gonna set up over most of this. I think it's like 12 by 20 or something. But this whole area is gonna be for mushroom production. Ducks and mushrooms go together, as Forrest Gump would say, about like peanut butter and jelly. I learned this when I did 2 weeks of agroforestry with Steve Gabriel up in the Finger Lakes region, up in upstate New York. It was a permaculture activity. But anyhow, Steve Gabriel talked about pretty much if you grow mushrooms, you will get slugs. And you know what loves vacuuming up slugs like a Hoover? Ducks. So this is going to be my mushroom growing area. And the ducks I'll set up a little low fence, similar to what we've got here. And we'll have a duck moat that is patrolled by the ducks to keep the slugs and snails away from the mushrooms. So that'll be one productive area of the farm. The next one that I'm working on right here is this long row here, and this is pretty much the exact site of where Grandpa Ralph, that's my father-in-law's father, my wife's grandfather, had his asparagus bed, and it had been here for about 30 years, and it was putting up like 1 or 2 lonely shoots over the last 3 or 4 years. And so after the chickens cleared all of this used to be covered like pasture. I don't even know if I've uploaded recent videos. You can find them in my old Instagram feed, but all of this was just covered over. It was historically Ralph's garden, but Ralph died in the late 90s, and then it was just kind of overtaken by nature again. So it's really excellent soil that Ralph used to dump loads and loads of cow manure from his dairy operation in. I did have a soil test done 2 years ago before the chickens got to work, and the results, the scientists from Virginia Tech said choice, just mwah, chef's kiss. Ooh, perfect soil, don't add a thing. Now of course we've since added some chicken manure here, but that's kind of a little bit of the back history. But this whole row here will be a mixed bed of I've got 2 or 3 different kinds of asparagus. I've got 8 different kinds of strawberries that are going to be planted in between them. And then there'll be horseradish boxes on some of the ends, and a row of rhubarb. Those are 4 really nice companion plants, and I remembered reading an article about them years ago in Mother Earth News, and I've kept that article bookmarked ever since then, knowing that that's what I'm going to do with this plot right here. So we're going to rejuvenate Ralph's asparagus bed and add some things to it as well. You can see where Italian chow is standing and crowing there is a series of beds that I made last fall. There are currently 13 beds in there, and I know I can get 16 out of them, and that's what I want. This site gets a ton of light in the spring and summer, and as the pecan trees here fill out, you start to get a little more shade in this spot, and that's why this is going to be pretty much my greens patch. The 13 rows that are here, and I just finished tilling this up so I can shape up 3 more rows for 16 rows. They're about 26 feet long, and that's going to be greens. Any leafy green, it's pretty much, they're all going to go right there. So those will be here. The chicken intensive care unit is going to be moved over into this bantam area here. I've got a redesign for them. I've got a garden guinea pin idea that's going to go in here, and some changes to the brooder. But and you can see here all the beds. I took a master class with Jean-Martin Fortier 2 years ago, and I continue to reference that all the time. If you're thinking about joining that class, it's worth every penny. But according to his guidelines, all the beds are 18-inch lanes with 30-inch beds. That's standard. My lengths are not standardized on all the sections of the garden, but the widths of the beds are. So green section, asparagus, perennial vegetables section. That's how I like to refer to that bump over there. And then greens. I just got these shaped up today. We worked on a little bit yesterday, but today I kind of went through and finalize them a little bit more. But this is basically just a 500 square foot patch that's going to be a cutting flower garden. Some annuals, but I'm actually going to try and do a lot of perennials in there. Things that I don't have to keep planting, but there's definitely going to be plenty of sunflowers, and everybody brings zinnias to the market. You've probably heard me talk about that in other videos. I am not anti-zinnia. If you've seen the chicken eggs that my birds produce, we like to do things a little differently. So I don't know how many zinnias you're going to see. By the way, if you've ever thought about getting Muscovy ducks, there's Splot up there. Muscovies are not like other domestic ducks. They fly and fly and fly. In fact, I have pulled up here on many a morning and seen Skosh, the little brown one, and Splot, the little ducks, as opposed to the drakes, on the roof of the tenant house there. Many times I have driven up and they're hanging out on the chimney, or they'll land up there. So anyhow, little distraction. Right here I've got 2 grow out pins. Only one of them is occupied, but they're gonna be moved elsewhere. I'm either gonna set up grow out pins outside of the fencing area or something inside near the brooder, so I can get like a little chain of, from hatchery, from brooding to larger brooder boxes to juvenile grow out pins, and then out to their respective flocks. But that area is going to be a greenhouse where I can get seeds started indoors, or at least outdoors, but in shelter. So that's a long-term plan for that. Right here is another section of the garden. There are 7 rows right now, but I'm pretty sure that my measurements are off as I get towards the end, and I know I can redo this and get another 8th bed in there. These beds are about 32, 34 feet long, but there's 8 beds here, and these will be for runner beans, lots and lots of tomatoes, pole beans. This is going to be for things, cucumbers that would like a trellis and lots of sun, because there's basically no shade at this part of the garden at all most of the year. So it's going to be for things that can soak up the heat and love it. And then as we go out here, there is another section of the garden. There's a lot of mess. Normally I would be, well, I am somewhat embarrassed to show that. I went to art school, and as a kid I was always drawing and making things, and I was one of those people who kind of like to work in private and then just kind of like ta-da, unveil like something really cool. I did not like to kind of show people the mess, and honestly I'm still that way, but you guys are watching this, and many of you are very kind to comment and follow, so I'm going to work on not being stressed out about that and assume that we're all friends here. So anyhow, there's another section of the garden. So there's the perennial bed, that's 1. The greens, that's 2. The cut flower garden, that's 3. The vining plants, tomatoes, etc., that's 4. I've got this section here, so this will be the 5th section of the garden. And I'm probably gonna do garlic here. That's a pretty good sized plot. I love garlic, and I've got garlic seed for bulbs to plant for about 6 different varieties that I'm a big fan of. There is a little runoff here. Sometimes this gets a little soggy, which is not good for the garlic, so not quite sure about that. Do you see Kennig running over there, my little king? He's still got a little hitch in his giddy up. I don't know if his leg is ever gonna be right. He's a very sweet rooster though. So that's area 5. And I can also do corn here on the back. South is directly that way. But I'm going to do corn blocks kind of in a couple different places. And you've heard me talk about this honeysuckle patch back here before many times. You can see the T-post back there where I've already staked off the area that it's going to be. We're just waiting for a good day when we can coordinate the burn. All this is going to get burned off. It was going to be winter quarters for the birds. That's obviously not going to happen this year, but I am still going to burn it all off and then run the birds in there probably before the last frost, because I want this whole section, it's about 40 feet wide by 110, 120 feet long. That's all going to be a melon patch. So I'm going to put my squash in there, my pumpkins in there, my watermelons in there, honeydews, cantaloupes, all that stuff is going to go back here. And I really want the birds to run through there and just dump as much as they possibly can for all those heavy feeding plants to enjoy, and then, you know, let it cure under a tarp for a little while. Tarps are another big part of what I learned from Fortier and what I'm doing here. Once the beds right now, they're shaped up, I'll cover them over. I have some giant silage tarps. I've got a really good size one from Haas Tools, whom I recommend, and I got some excellent ones from a Farmer's Friend, but they need to be cut because my beds are not a real standard size, but they're heavy duty, you know, they'll last the better part of a decade, if not longer. And the idea behind the tarps is to cover the ground that you've tilled, cover the garden bed. The warmth of the sun, they're black, the warmth of the sun and the darkness will make any seeds that are in there want to germinate, and they'll germinate, but they'll be under cover of darkness underneath that tarp, and they will never get enough light, and so they'll die. So what you're basically doing with tarping, and this is primarily a European technique that's catching on in the US, but what you're doing with the tarping is you're working to exhaust the supply of weed seeds or unwanted seeds. Weed is a loaded term, that are inside your bed. So that's the thinking behind that, and it really cuts down on weed pressure. Unfortunately, I have unique pressure here also in terms of wiregrass, which you can see the, you know, the bits and pieces here. The chickens have been helping me keep this pretty darn bare. But, you know, we just tilled it again. And, of course, it's also winter right now. It's, you know, middle of February. So I know it's going to be a challenge. The folks at Farmer's Friend talked about if you really want to completely destroy a patch of grass with a tarp, they recommend leaving it tarped for a year. That is not really an option that I've got. Over here comes Ducky. Hi, Ducky. What's going on with your eye? You got a little foam in there? What's going on? Ducky lived in our bathtub for 6 to 8 weeks. He's semi-friendly. He's a Muscovy. Hi. I don't know if I ever got corn or a treat or something. I wish I did. He's a sweetie. I mean, as far as Muscovy drakes go, he's a sweetie. In some ways, he's meaner than my meanest roosters, but because he's a duck, he's not nearly as damaging. But I tell you what, don't get near those feet. Holy cow. You want to talk about, you know, velociraptor claws. Ducky, are you just going to groom or are you going to come see me? All right. Let him do his thing. All right, so we got up to 5 beds here. Obviously, I've got to go in here and shape these into the 30-inch rows with 18-inch lanes. There's still a little snow on the ground here from this morning. Everything was covered with snow, and you can see it's pretty much all gone now. I tilled up a nice big patch out here that's going to be corn and potatoes. 2 crops that don't require a lot of attention from me, which is great, and not very intense management. Same thing back here. There's another big block. I'm going to do corn and potatoes in here as well. I'm going to set up some rows in different places around here and just plant lots and lots of sunflowers everywhere, just for cutting, but also for feed for the birds. Hey guys, there's a bachelor pad. You can see I'm building up there for the burn pile. And I may even come back here and till up some for a block again of corn or something, because my long-term goal is to have a long covered hoop house all the way back here, and then I've got the orchard and the trees and the pasture and the spaces for the rotational grazing that goes from here all the way back to there, as well as on the other side of the rooster run. I'll show you more of the grazing area. I'm trying to basically set up 12 blocks back there so that, hey guys and gals, right now we've got 3 flocks, but there's going to be 4 once I get the Nordic flock completely outfitted. Hey Sonny, hey Ollie, hey Legs. We're a happy family. But yeah, I'm trying to get basically some multiple of 4, so 12 to 16 paddocks set up so that I can rotate the birds through that. And by the time I make it to the end of one paddock, make it to the end of the circuit, it's been 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I'm not sure, but there's been time for the first paddock to regenerate some, and I can bring it back in. And of course, you know, the backbone of it is going to be the quality of the pasture. So I've got loads of clover and daikon radish and kale and Essex and just a bunch of stuff to plant in here to make the forbs, is that the little greenery, tastier for the birds, garden peas and all that. But also I've planted a ton of fruit and nut trees in here to constantly improve their diet. So there's serviceberry, there's apple varieties, there's pear varieties, there's hazelnut, there's a bunch of different viburnum varieties, there's fig varieties. There's a wild elderberry is here naturally in this part of the farm, and I'm just encouraging it, letting it do its thing. But I've also planted some actual cultivars that I've got from my house back in town. I've got Johns and Adams and Nova and York elderberry cultivars, and so I've been planting them out here. I've also added little oak trees, larger or medium-sized oak trees like Bergamble oak. Where's my Bergamble? There are 4 or 5 Bergambles. There it is in this area. Going through there, there's persimmons over that way, more pear trees, crab apples. There's just a lot of stuff, but that in, what are we at, almost 20 minutes, is a little orientation. Hey, Java. How's my best boy? Oh, and there's Pearl. Hey, kids. Love you guys. So that, in a 20-minute nutshell, is the farm. The farm and the garden as it exists right now. It's an ambitious plan. It's a lot to do, but I'm just plugging along as I can, and occasionally I have some great help and a lot of support from my family and the community. So things are going pretty well. The sun is out today, so it's easy to be optimistic, which is nice. Hey, everybody. And planting grapes. I'm gonna add some hops. We got some thornless honey locust trees to plant to train the grapes and the hops up. More chickens are arriving this spring. Persimmons, plums, hazelnuts. Just a lot of stuff. Roses, grasses, perennial sunflowers, sunchokes. Mulberries, loads of mulberries. I got some great mulberry trees from Eliza Greenman, who, if you're not following, you absolutely should. She's an amazing person and super knowledgeable about all things fruit tree, especially lost varieties. And the only thing I'll talk about before we wrap this up is, and we kind of walked past it, I didn't say anything, we were looking at that corn block. Up here on the right is where the rooster run was when the roosters were only, like, 8 in number in terms of surplus roosters. And I hate to use that term, but that's how they were delivered to me. They weren't part of the original plan, so I needed to find something to do with them. So this is where they used to live. Hi, guineas. Getting more guineas this year, by the way. But they were in this area here. They had they had a house, and when I moved everybody over to the much larger rooster run, which is about 3,000 square feet, this was all emptied. I'm going to try and set up a really nice composting operation here with food scraps based on what I've seen from Sean and Sasha Dombrowski up at Edible Acres. If you're not following their channel, you totally should. They're incredibly generous with their experiments and clever solutions to a bunch of really nice integrated things. But I'm going to try and set up a compost system here where the kitchen waste and even some commercial kitchen waste comes in, and then it gets beaten down as it goes down that way. The beaters will be the chickens, and if you're selling eggs commercially, you cannot feed your chickens scraps, and so we don't. But this will be our 3rd year, and some of our chickens will be 3 they'll be going on their 3rd year coming up this fall. And so that's usually when chickens experience a dramatic decline in egg production. But as you heard me explain before, our chickens have a very strong union with excellent health benefits and lifelong employment. And so one of the jobs they can do when they are no longer laying eggs is add fertilizer and help with the fertility for the farm. So they're going to be in here making compost. I'm going to set up a big house for the henopausal chickens. And right now, I'm thinking that's where this is going to happen. It could change elsewhere, but that's just an idea I've got. The Vermont Composting Company also is another example of a thing that I'm looking at for how to deal with, how to handle our ladies who will be entering retirement here over the next 18 months or so. So anyhow, that's where we're at. That's a lot, but that's probably the most I've ever said about just kind of the whole vision for the farm, certainly in a while. So I hope you enjoy it. If you have questions, concerns, complaints, critiques, positive ones, please, friendly ones, feel free to post below in the comments. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Broad Shoulders Farm. I hope wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever you're dreaming, I hope it's going really well for you. So I'll talk to you guys later, and have a great day.